heading south to the city of Guilin. Our guide is Lele, and we were surprised to find our room has been updated to a suite with this spectacular view overlooking the lake. Just down the street they're having what's called a beer festival. So after settling into our hotel, we went down for a look. This is an artist making suckers out of a mixture of honey and sugar. Being a little hungry, we passed up on the stinky tofu, but we did try some of the dim sum, followed up by an ice cream and a waffle cone. It tasted more like ice milk, and later learned that most of the ice cream was made out of soy, since many of the people are lactose intolerant. Here they're playing a ring toss game, winning small animals as prizes. For being a beer festival, it was strange. We never did find any beer. Getting late, we headed down to the lake to view the beautifully lit up pagodas. Lele told us we were lucky. This is the last weekend of the Lantern Festival on the lake. He also told us that most of these floats were just big advertisements put on by the local businesses. Being greeted by a wonderful morning view from our hotel room, we meet Lele for our 2-hour drive to tour the Longshen's rice terrace fields. This is one of 8 villages inhabited by the Zhuang minority, of which only 3 are open to visitors. The rice here is only harvested once a year, and it was due to be harvested last week, but due to the rains, they're starting the harvest today. Only the women were in the field harvesting the rice. The men would come by 3 or 4 days later after the rice is dried to collect it.
If too much rain, it's not a good time to harvest because at that time, the rice paddy is very muddy, very slippery. So when you go to harvest, you need to take off your shoes and step inside. If too much water, it's very muddy, you cannot move. So they need the rice paddy very dry. So it is easier for the people to step inside. And also another one, if too much water, the water snake, the river snake.
Oh. And are they poisonous?
No. They're river snake. They're no poison. So that is why when the local people when they catch the snake wine.
Snake wine?
Yes.
Wow.
Because they're no poison, so that's why the people use them to make the snake wine. And they, especially if some people have some problem with the shoulder, with your knee, you drink some. And tomorrow you can jump around. So now they need to dry the rice here, and about 2 or 3 days when the rice totally dry, so they take home. They have one machine. They
Yeah.
And the rice all for them.
Yes. And then there's another machine that blows the husk away.
Yes.
You turn?
Yes,
Yeah, blows.
Yes.
We saw one of those yesterday, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen
In a museum.
In the museum.
Yeah.
Okay. But here in the country, in the family, they still use it.
After the rice has been cleaned, it is laid out on the patios to dry. Turned regularly, this tended to be the job of the older members of the community.
And do they eat all the rice they make here?
Yes, if they have more than enough, they use the rice to make the rice.
Oh, okay.
Rice one. Yes.
Do they actually live in this little village though?
Yes,
In these apartment kind of things.
Tell the truth, this village now lots of new hotels because lots of people coming here, so they have lots of hotels for the tourists to stay here. And just look at those houses. You can tell what is the traditional house and what is the hotel. And the hotel is much bigger than the regular house. And but one house for 3 generations living together, and about 10 people living together. So at the first floor, the animal living at the first floor, and the second floor is a living room and a kitchen, and the third floor is the bedroom. So 3 stories.
And do they have modern toilets?
At home, they just dig in the hole.
Okay.
And 2 bricks on the top. That's it. Because they need the manure to
fertilize.
Yes, fertilize.
This structure was a place for the workers to rest and have lunch. As we walked down the hill, we passed a solitary house. Lele explained why it was separated from the village.
600 years before, here no jail, no prison. So if some people did something wrong, here no policeman, no police. So they say if somebody steals something, do something bad, okay, they say you go away, don't live in together with us. So live into the other side. This is like the punishment. Why? Because at that time, lots of wild animals. So if you are not living together with other people, it's not safe. So this is like the punishment.
As we entered the village, we passed by a lot of foods that are used by the villagers and the guests. This is our location for lunch today, the Miyu Cafe. One of our dishes with lunch was rice and vegetables, cooked in bamboo over an open fire. As the bamboo heated, the moisture was enough to cook the rice. This was the traditional way the workers had lunch in the field. Along with lunch, I did have some of the rice wine fermented with passion fruit.
That night, we were treated to a very special experience. We were invited to the home of our travel advisor, Lissy, her husband, Stephen, the CEO of China Highlights, and their daughter, Isabel. It was a pleasure talking with them about our travel experiences and sharing a home-cooked meal of delicious Chinese food.
The first thing on the schedule this morning is a visit to the Lingchu Canal. Lele explained how this canal was a strategic part of a navigation system linking North and South China. This particular waterway was split into 2, the left for irrigation and the right for transportation and domestic use. I was wondering what these pink things were on the walls of the canal. They're snail eggs. These women were traveling together, and they were all dressed in native outfits. You would think it was us who wanted to pose with them, but it was actually them who wanted photographs with us, because we were Westerners. And once we were on the boat, a lady shared some of her lunch with us, saying that we were the first Westerners her and her mother had ever seen.
Is this called a long-tail boat?
No, we got a long time.
它这个船走一圈大概要多久？
几个小时吧，
大概是半个小时。
半个小时，
Half an hour boat.
3:50，51。哦，12点了，12点多了。
12点多了。
These people were all gathered together for a wedding, and we noticed they were sitting around pots over fire pits. They were called hot pots and used for communal meals.
Yes.
But you get into that big pot. That would be hard to use them.
No, those for the professional chef. It used to be the local people carrying the veggies and selling something on both sides, but now no more.
With some extra time, we did some window shopping along Jing's Water Street, before having another big lunch, including fish cooked in beer with ginger and chili. Reed Flute Cave was discovered in 1959 and opened to the public in 1962. And I guess I wasn't too surprised with the way Chinese like to light things up, is that the cave is lit up with all sorts of colored lights. And another thing very different from a lot of other caves we went to is that there's nothing stopping you from touching the formations next to the walkways. In the largest room deep within the cave, they projected movies on the wall. One depicted a hole in the top of the cave, where you looked into a prehistoric land filled with dinosaurs and pterodactyls. This movie here was a little more serene. As we left, Lele wanted to make sure I took a quick look at the restroom. Our night cruise of the 4 lakes of Guilin was even more spectacular, being the last night of the lantern display. Across the lakes are various bridges, representing different landmarks around the world. Does this one look familiar? The Golden Gate Bridge. Here they were showing how they used cormorants in the ancient fishing technique, where they put a ring around the cormorant's neck so it can't swallow the fish. About halfway through the boat ride was a stage, where they had performances of minority songs and traditional Chinese music, presented by the local Guilin Opera. Lele timed our tour so we could be back in time to see the nightly waterfall display at our hotel. For 15 minutes every night, they dump water over the side of the hotel, forming a cascading falls. Lele explained that the water came from 2 swimming pools at the top of the hotel, that they drain and flush with water every night. This is something that attracted our attention. These are young coconuts that have been steamed, just enough to soften the flesh. We ended up having a late night snack, including a soft serve ice cream that was half green tea and half vanilla, a few dim sum, and a bowl of cut up fresh mango. Well, it's time to get back to the hotel. Tomorrow we'll be up early, taking a cruise down the Li River to Yangshao.